This is the second of 4 videos on dealing with the x-intercepts or roots of a quadratic polynomial. And the idea here is, how do we convert between the standard form of a quadratic and the factored form? Well, what is the factored form? It's going to be something like this. How do we convert between the two? How do we go between these two? How do we do that? Well, the path from this factored form to the standard form is actually very easy. So this way, here, this is algebra. Going this way is either factoring, if you can do it, or the quadratic formula. So let's take care of the first conversion. So factored to standard. What do you do? Well, we just multiply this out. You can use the little FOIL rule if you've remembered that, or just multiply by distributing this factor through. So I get x minus a times x minus x minus a times b, and then distribute back the other way. And then distribute through with that c, and we're in good shape. And there's a little bit of cleanup here. Notice there's a common factor of an x. In fact, I'll do it this way. And if you look at it here, this is capital C. Let me make it a little more obvious. That's a capital C. That's become our little a. This thing here, that's become our b. And this thing here is our little c. So that's how you convert from the factored form to the standard form. Okay, how do you go the other way? Now, if you remember from the previous video, there's sometimes situations where your quadratic polynomial is not going to have any x-intercepts at all, so then it won't have a factored form. So this does not always work. So caution. This may fail. So we'll need to pay attention to that. Sometimes there is no factored form that you can write down. Well, there is if you're willing to go talk about complex numbers, which we're not in this course. Okay, so what do you do? Well, we need to remember something called the quadratic formula. So our tool is the quadratic formula. And the quadratic formula says that the x-intercepts of this quadratic written in standard form are x equals negative b plus square roots b squared minus 4ac divided by 2a, and So one of the things that people typically will write is they will write these together. So we usually write this. As a plus or minus to say that the only difference between these two formulas is that sign. And you need both of them. So that's the tool. Now there's a very important part of this tool. That very important part is this b squared minus 4ac part. Let's pull that guy out. This is called the discriminant. You see, any of the problems with the factoring can be detected by looking at this discriminant. And in fact, the three cases of how many x-intercepts you have come about by looking at this discriminant. So if this guy here is positive, then you get 2 x-intercepts. If squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, then you get 1 x-intercept. And if b squared minus 4ac is less than 0, then there is no factored form. There are no x-intercepts. And in particular, there is no factored form. So if you see b squared minus 4ac being negative, then you stop right there. You cannot go from the standard form to the factored form. You're just done. And stay so. But if you have one of these other two situations, then you have a factored form. Now there's one little hiccup here, and that little hiccup is that we've got this constant c out front. So these will tell us the capital A and the capital B. So these are going to be capital A and your capital B. Notice here that if b squared minus 4ac is equal to 0, then this whole thing is 0, and you get negative b over 2a. And you get negative b over 2a. That also goes away. So this 1 x-intercept is automatically taken care of by this formula. A and b will be the same thing, then you'll get an x minus a, all quantities squared, which is just what you want when you've got just 1 x-intercept. So really, these are the pieces you need. The only thing we're missing is this capital C out front. And where does that come from? Well, that capital C, that comes out, when we went from the factored form to the standard form, what did we do? Well, we multiplied this whole thing out, and we found out cx squared was the very first term in writing this thing out as the standard form. So the c and the little a are actually the same thing. So let me summarize. Let me summarize by saying that this capital C here in this form is actually the little a. So this is in the standard form, and this guy's in the factored form. So you just put all these pieces together. You find A and B using the quadratic formula, and the leading coefficient, thing sticking out in front, it's just the thing sticking out in front there. So the thing on the x squared. Okay, well in the next video, I'm going to show you how to solve the worksheet. Now, what you need to do is you need to go ahead and do the worksheet now. So stop the video playing for a little while, don't look at the solution for the worksheet, go do the worksheet. And once you think you've gotten it through, then watch the next video.